Hello everyone. Today I'm wearing my bold strategy cotton shirt because I have a bold strategy coming your way. It is Jeanne d'Arc, but instead of building up a mass of knights like you regularly do, this time you're building up an absolutely gigantic army of infantry with Jeanne as the commander. This is a strategy that I ran into on the ranked ladder and got absolutely destroyed by 2 games in a row. Since then, I've adopted it myself. I've been finding a great deal of success. It's unique, it's a little bit cheesy, but more than anything, it's extremely, extremely strong. This is a build order that was not included in Valdemar's most recent 3 different build orders for Jeanne d'Arc, so it's something new, and without further ado, let's jump right into things here. We're actually spectating today. This is not my gameplay. We're taking a look at Mr. Tomato. This is the man himself who absolutely destroyed me on the ladder, and I figured why not go straight to the source with the actual person who showed me how the strategy goes, because he's the one who's a bit more of an expert at it than I am. You can see immediately he builds a house with Jeanne d'Arc in order to build additional experience, and then he chooses to continue gaining that experience by keeping Jeanne close to the town center and gathering the food from the sheep. He sends 1 villager out to gold, and then sends a 2nd villager out to gold. Speed things up and also get you the villager split here. And then he rallies 1 back to food for a total of 7. And then he kind of continues on to the gold from there. I did watch this once beforehand, but I'm not super familiar, so I'm kind of half learning as well as you all are during this game. He's up against the Jushi's Legacy, which is of course the strongest civilization on this patch, and he makes relatively short work of Wolf Jr. here. You can see it's pretty standard stuff from Jeanne d'Arc to begin with. 4 on gold, 7 on food, going to be rallying back to the food at this point. His scouting pattern was relatively safe, just kind of going around closer to his base, which is fine. Things get interesting though in terms of how much wood you need for this strategy. He does a couple of things that maybe I wouldn't recommend earlier on, but I will. I'll kind of give you some notes as we go. So he takes 2 villagers, 1 Jeanne, 1 normal villager to build the School of Cavalry, which is correct, and then he takes 3 to chop the straggler trees. The reason why he chops the straggler trees is because he wants to go out and build a mill immediately. You don't necessarily have to do this. It's probably just fine if you just go straight to building a lumber camp instead of doing the straggler trees, but again, it's all preference. Jeanne d'Arc is one of those where there's a lot of similar things you can do, and the timings don't change too much back and forth. He leaves 1 villager on the berries, chooses to go up with survival techniques first. I would say that this is probably a mistake. You don't need this immediately. It doesn't give you additional gather rate from your sheep. It's only the deer that you're going to be getting from pro scouts. You just don't need to rush that. So it's not a huge deal to do that. You can probably delay that and just focus more on getting the wood going. You can see Wolf Jr. playing the Jushi's Legacy has gotten a pretty decent meditation gardens in the back here. Very quick age up to the Feudal Age. And then here comes the first night of the game from Jeanne d'Arc. And you might be thinking, this is the same. What are you talking about? Trust me, it's not, because this is the only knight that he builds throughout the entire game. It's 1 knight. The thing is, people are expecting you to build this massive knights as Jeanne d'Arc. He's going over here, doing his best to lame these deer by killing them in order to kind of force some additional actions per minute from the Jushi's Legacy player. Just trying to be annoying. Changes into, he really prefers Hunter Jeanne. I don't necessarily think that's necessary. You could definitely go the melee form, but he seems to prefer ranged Jeanne d'Arc in this case. And it's definitely an interesting strategy and one I don't use very often. He's pretty proficient at it though. This knight comes down, just does a little bit of damage over here, and I'm sure if we jump back over to this side, you can see that Professional Scouts is done, and he is bringing back the deer already. And you can see he's been building nothing but scouts from the School of Cavalry ever since. And then once he has enough wood, you can see he has a lot of people on wood, ends up taking a little bit too much time with this lumber camp and has to long distance chop. But he goes for 1 archery range and 1 barracks. And this begins the flood of these more infantry-based military buildings that just he just makes more and more and more and consecrates more and more and more throughout the game. You can see Jeanne's now fighting these spearmen, just gaining a little bit of experience, trying his best to stop this deer from getting back to the town center, or to this mill, I should say in this case. But bringing Jeanne this far forward has definitely been useful. He's managed to keep this knight alive, Was unfortunately stopped from getting all these deer back to that base, but at the same time, he is successfully pro-scouting all of his. He's going with 6 scouts, so fairly aggressive scouting in order to try and get as many of those deer back as quickly as possible. The knight still manages to stay alive thanks to Jeanne's healing. You can see there's a consecrate here. And which building would you choose to consecrate? Wouldn't it be the School of Cavalry? Normally, yes, when you're building knights. But in this case, he's going to be consecrating, I believe, the barracks first, because he wants to get out a ton of extremely cheap spearmen. And this is something that is a benefit of Jeanne d'Arc that a lot of pro players talk about coming on later, is maybe once you're in Castle Age, you can switch to infantry. In this case, this player, Mr. Tomato, is just doing such an amazing job of... Oh, I think Jeanne is going to go down a couple last firing shots there. You hate to see it. But such a great job of taking advantage of that swing with the very cheap infantry much earlier. And you can end up massing such an enormous force, even against someone like Jushi's Legacy that has such an insane economy early on. Jeanne returns, and you can see the consecrate comes in, and now these spearmen cost 45 food and 20 wood, which is insanely cheap. Really crazy stuff. We can speed things up here because he's just kind of building up his force. You can see that these scouts are trying to come in and get some additional deer, or at least scout out what's going on. Not going to find very much success because these 6 scouts on Mr. Tomato's side have made short work of the deer over there. You can see coming forward and just being annoying with a knight, 2 spears, an archer. Consecrates another building. This time, he does choose to consecrate the School of Cavalry and make a couple of horsemen. In the games that he played against me, he did not do this. He didn't even consecrate this building at all. And in fact, I would say this isn't worth it. Spoiler alert, going further into the game. He really doesn't make very many horsemen from this anyways. So he kind of goes for this and then very quickly backs off and continues on the infantry side of things. He loops around the back here with all 6 scouts. Now that they have nothing to do, why not, force some idle time from your opponent and start burning down some buildings. So he starts burning down this village, continues kind of poking up and around the side here with some of these archers, and just trying to be annoying. Trying to cause as many problems as possible. This villager's stuck doing a bit of a dance in between here. And yeah, just trying to cause idle time, cause delays on the Jushi player's side. But you can see that this mass is starting to grow. There's now 21 military on the side of Mr. Tomato, and it's only going to be a bigger and bigger lead from here. He does lose 2 scouts, but again, these have already done their job, so it's not too important. Jushi doing what they do best and starting to mass up a significant force of their own. And now they are also in Castle Age, so they're going to grab all of the relics. What Mr. Tomato loves to do is build a small force like we've just seen, kind of about this big of units, and then he goes into the guild hall. Oh, sorry, the guild hall here. He leaves it on food, does run away from this single lancer that comes and tries to do a little bit of a raid here. But he's back on this side, also causing problems. Villager kills 4-0, thanks to this small force. It's been doing a great job. The knight from the very beginning of the game finally goes down. But again, he leaves this on food for a long, long time, and it allows him to get a pretty significantly fast Imperial Age, because that is Mr. Tomato's plan. It's not about winning the game early. It's about building up that infantry mass, getting Imperial Age, getting a lot of those massive upgrades in, because you're not using as much gold building knights all the time, and moving on from there. You can see he's building a combination of spears and men-at-arms from the barracks, and he's building arbaletrier from the archery range. And again, 3 consecrates so far. Almost another one coming in shortly. Doing a great job protecting the gold mine here with just a couple of arbaletrier and spears. There's a nice wall you could potentially do between these 2 wood lines. And again, the Jushi's Legacy player is doing an amazing job of collecting all the relics. I think in this game, Jushi might actually get all 5, potentially. It might actually just miss this one. So I think it ends up being a 4-1 relic game, where you would think Jushi has such an advantage, but again, the strategy is just so unique that people aren't going to be expecting this from you. If you look, there's no eco upgrades at all so far. Probably could have gotten a couple more at this point, but here's the deal. He's stuck at his current level, level 2 Jeanne. A great way to gain experience, plus 50 every time you capture a sacred site. So now he doesn't have to press in, he doesn't have to do any major damage. It's just collecting the relics and grabbing the sacred sites using Jeanne d'Arc. Successfully kills one of the monks there for 20. stopping another little bit of raiding. But you can see that, again, there's an army mass for the Jeanne d'Arc player in this case. Spreading them out intelligently across. Opponent is making a combination of crossbows, Jugunu, and spears to deal with what? What are the spears for? The spears are to deal with those couple of horsemen. There's no knights, though. And here's the deal, right? Like, you're going to be tricking your opponents by doing this. Again, able to level up Jeanne d'Arc, which is amazing. We look back at the base, now have this barracks, this archery range, all consecrated, getting you much, much cheaper units. Has probably already pulled from the guild hall, and it's already back up to an additional 1,260 food. So this landmark, in terms of helping you get to the next stage, is just amazing. You can see there's a bit of a battle back and forth here over the sacred sites. Both are just kind of slowly starting to mass, and then here's a fight. Jeanne d'Arc, level 3, has the man-at-arms, has Jeanne's champions to do additional damage against those spearmen, and very quickly gains a bunch of additional experience from this fight, and also easily thwarts the Jushi Legacy player. Heals, and this is the thing, your Divine Restoration heals all nearby allies, instantly healing for 30%. When you have a huge mass, this is a massive amount of healing. All of a sudden, the army mount is absolutely doubled. So, again, really strong. Does end up putting up this wall on this side. Now has all of the infantry buildings consecrated for those cheaper 75 food and 20 gold for a man-at-arm. That's crazy. Also now starting to get his blacksmith technologies in. 2,000 food is ready to be collected from the guild hall. So if you take a look, he's not actually that far away from Imperial Age. Coming over here with Jeanne once again to decap and then recapture this sacred site just for some more additional passive gold. And the Jushi's Legacy player is kind of stuck in their base. Building a second town center now to try and build a bit of an economic lead, seeing that they lost that fight pretty badly. Getting Ordnance Company on Jeanne d'Arc's side to make sure that the consecrated buildings also reduce the cost of wood and gold by 25%. So that's also a huge technology. Probably should have gotten this earlier, actually. Once he hit Castle Age, probably one of the first technologies you would want to build from the blacksmith, because it would have saved him so much resources in terms of building up this army in the first place. But you can see, building up, has a villager lead, been able to keep that production consistent from the town center. 2,700, 2,900 resources ready to be collected from the guild hall. And you can see, immediately pulls 20 villagers off of the wood line, and then runs in and builds the Red Palace right here, guarding this sacred site and providing a forward place for his army, also taking advantage of holding onto this gold vein. Has not consecrated the town center yet. That would be something I would definitely consider going forward. Has 2 barracks, really focusing more on the ranged units from the archery ranges. You can see starting to decap these sacred sites just with the scouts that weren't doing anything, which is a smart idea. Unfortunately, I don't think the Jushi Legacy player sees this go up, immediately starts firing down and taking out these palace guards. But you can see still almost double the military count on Jeanne d'Arc's side. Now in the Imperial Age. So what's the first thing to do? Upgrade to Elite Arbaletier. That's first order of business. Still has so much food. Have they switched the guild hall over to gold? No, still collecting more additional food. At some point you do want to get that to gold as the game goes later and later. Once again, captures, and Jeanne d'Arc is just, I feel like he may be doing this on purpose, letting it get captured so we can recapture this just to get some additional experience on Jeanne d'Arc. It's so much experience. 50 is a huge amount. If we see, we'll swap the views here. You can see JD is currently only like a third the way to level 4, but still, every little bit counts. Back to the caster mode. Like ships in the night, they kind of passed by each other. This is a big mass of pretty much the entire army of Jushi, and now you can see going up with Jushi's library to the next stage. But Mr. Tomato has already got crosscut saw coming in, plate cutter point, gambesons for additional melee armor for the arbaletier. And this is the melee, so the infantry composition I was talking about. Literally just this mass of infantry units with Jeanne as kind of the single person at the head. I'm gonna swap back. I just realized I screwed up the camera there by doing that. Reset camera. Back again. And now it's time to push in. The upgrades are through, and it's time for JD to push into the base here. So very patient game, and again, look, double the army count. There's 60 here. There's 114 army on the side of Jeanne d'Arc, and like they didn't really do any massive damage. Like there was only 5 villager kills, but at the same time, JD was able to build such a massive lead from this, and now is just getting all of this experience from fighting here, kills an Imperial official as well. These man-at-arms tanking up the Jugunu and also the crossbows very effectively. Runs in immediately once Wolf Jr. hit the Imperial Age, recognizing that he was going to have the upgrades when the Jushi player did not. Even this Nest of Bees coming in, trying its best to deal with these ranged units is not going to be enough. Dropped the Pavi's shield to do additional damage there, and JD is just farming at this point. 60 experience there, runs around the corner for additional vision, sees the Nest of Bees here, pops that one as well, and JD is now level 4 with a complement of archers, arbaletier, man-at-arms, and a base filled with infantry, military production buildings. And it's more and more and more at this point. And that is where the game ends. An absolutely crushing defeat of one of the civilizations that is the strongest at the moment, who got about half the deer from pro scouting, who didn't really get damaged very much at all, but got absolutely overwhelmed by the infantry composition of Jeanne d'Arc. I tell you, this is one that you should be playing on the ladder if you are a Jeanne d'Arc player. Mix it in with your kind of more knight-based compositions. It's going to throw your opponents off guard. I did want to take a quick look at the post-game screen here. Just taking a look. Mr. Tomatoes, his constant villager production pays off here with making sure that he has enough villagers coming through. And then if you look at the military count, it shows the story that always ahead in military and then absolutely destroys Jushi's legacy in that final fight. So give it a try. It's really nothing more than just shifting a little bit more villagers onto wood during that feudal age, and then allowing that guild hall to be the kind of big pull of food that will get you into the Imperial Age, where you can grab some of those massive upgrades and then kind of walk through your opponent on the other side. I've been playing it. I've been finding a lot of success at a game against Delhi recently, and again, just overwhelmed. And Delhi's a hard civilization to overwhelm with all of their passive bonuses in terms of getting their technologies for free and gold from the sacred sites if they can get them. So thank you again for watching. I hope you try this out on the ladder. It's fun kind of finding some unique stuff that maybe people haven't seen before. So I'll do my best to continue trying to do that for you guys. And yeah, thank you so much for watching the video. Really appreciate it. We'll catch you in the next one, and bye for now.